Hi, and welcome.
I'm Z,
And I'm Keith.
and we're going to tell you about the movie that we just watched. But first, a little bit of a heads up.
Some of the movies we watch deal with heavy subject matters.
In order to talk about these emotionally delicate things and the heavy subject matters that we sometimes cover, we add humor and crude language to add some levity and to process our own trauma.
If that doesn't feel fun or safe for you, we completely understand. Please take care of yourself first and foremost.
And we spoil the end of pretty much every movie that we watch.
Now you know. On with the show.
Hi, girl. Flirt.
Flirt it on, baby. I'm still unsure if I've actually seen this before. I feel like maybe,
Yeah.
but
It is, yeah.
how'd you feel?
It was not at all what I was expecting. I thought of course, I don't know why. I was like, I'm sorry. Hold on.
Reset.
Like I said in the lobby, like, I'm not usually a fan of anthologies, like in any
Right.
format. But I was like, of course, if anyone can do it, Hartley can. So I think it's a really interesting idea of having three different types of stories with three different characters, but all using like the same dialogue.
Yeah, in that way, it's almost not really an anthology because
Right, exactly.
usually they're,
Yeah.
if connected at all, it's by some very
something. Yeah.
thin thread or like a Grable.
Yeah. Right, yeah. It's it was
Or they're all in the same universe. And
Yeah.
you can tell that because one person walks behind.
right. Not to jump the shark,
It's like Mr. Show.
but did you have a favorite of the three?
Oh, that's a good question. Interesting question. The last section felt the longest.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that was just by the nature of it being last. It also had more complexity to it. There's the whole thing with the gun, which doesn't. I mean, there's a gun in everyone.
Yeah.
The way the gun is,
Yeah.
its own arc. Almost.
Yeah.
So
I think, believe it or not, I think my least favorite was the first one. Because I think that was the most straightforward and the most similar to other things, And I feel like
and by the nature of it being first, it's the one you're comparing all the other two to.
I loved the second one, but I think mainly it's because of Dwight.
Yeah.
I loved his character. I loved his dress. I love how he carried himself.
Yeah.
I love how he performed the dialogue. I feel like he was, also he's like the only black character in that, scene. So, but there was it makes sense that he would stand out, but it really felt like he stood out so much from everyone. Also, everyone else was, a Berliner or whatever.
Yeah.
And he is American, so that was
I know Berliner.
Yeah. But yeah, there was something about it that was very interesting. I loved his performance so much. And the third one,
The cafe scene in that one is so good.
which one was the cafe scene in the second one?
Yeah.
Oh my God, yes. I forgot about that completely. Yes. Oh my God. Fuck. Right. But the third one, I think, was the most compelling, and I felt like the most unlike Hartley's previous things.
Oh, yeah.
So
Right.
that really intrigued me. It's not that I didn't like the first one. Obviously, the why it's surprising that the first one wasn't as compelling for me is because that's one Martin Donovan was in.
Correct, right.
But I think
And all our regulars.
yeah,
to
basically,
date.
right. Yeah, Burke, Sage, and Donovan were in that one,
And
Parker
what's her
Posey.
name? Yeah, Posey. And what's her name? Who's in Trust? Who I think is underrated. She plays the supervisor in Trust.
Yeah.
At Ruark.
Yeah.
They end up kissing.
Yeah. I thought that one.
No,
I thought
I'm
that
sorry.
one.
I said his.
You mean Donovan's? No.
Yeah, she's Matthew Slaughter's supervisor.
Right.
In Trust, but in Flirt, she's interacting with Bill Sage.
Right. I thought it was very funny how he's just like. I think the first one was where it. Like, I caught on pretty quickly once the second one started that they were using the same dialogue. But it was the funniest, I think, in the first one when she's like, it felt like their back and forth went on longer of her being like, I want, like
in the very beginning of the first one?
Their back and forth of like,
yeah.
Do you want to be with me or
right.
not? And like all this stuff. Do we have a future? Because it's like the story basically, it's 3 different tellings of like the same essential story, which was very interesting. And it's a person is sleeping with someone and they are giving that person an ultimatum of like, do you see a future for us? And should I leave my partner for you kind of thing? And then that person that they're giving the ultimatum to then leaves to like
give the same ultimatum to
give
someone
the same
else.
ultimatum to someone else. To be like, should I leave my partner for you? And it's very funny. But the first one is Bill Sage and Parker Posey. And then it always ends
and the wife who you don't see, right?
Yeah, you don't see the wife. And the Margaret or something, I can't remember. Maeve, I don't fucking know. Anyway, so
magistrate.
Yeah,
Magi.
So
Magus.
The person when they leave and they give the ultimatum, they get on a payphone and they give that person the ultimatum. Should I leave my is there a future for us? And then they they like leave and then they're confronted by that person's spouse.
Right.
And in each one they get shot somehow. Like that person's spouse confronts them and there's a gun involved. Yeah. And the person gets shot
in the face.
In the face, but they're fine in the sense of like it's a flesh wound, and they just go to they go to the hospital, they get like sutured up and then they leave and then it's like what now?
Right.
That's kind of like how it's, what is their decision?
And that's where they really start to diverge from one another.
The one, I will say the gun is the funniest in the first one.
Sure.
Because Martin Donovan, I don't know if you notice, he has the gun and he puts a bullet in it. And then Bill Sage grabs the gun and takes the bullet out. And then Martin Donovan grabs the bullet. Oh my God, I kept laughing because I was like, it's so perfect.
It's also because it's Martin Donovan and Hal Hartley in a Hal Hartley movie.
Correct.
When he first shows up at the bar with just a revolver in a box that says revolver and a box of ammo. And he just sits it down on the bar and like orders a drink and starts loading the gun.
Evening, Walter.
How are you, Bill?
Mind if I sit down?
No, why should I mind?
What are you gonna do with that?
Want to shoot myself?
It's pretty stupid, Walter.
Yeah, I guess I ought to shoot Margaret, huh?
No, you're not gonna shoot anyone.
Maybe I ought to shoot you.
Why me?
Because you're a single guy with no responsibilities.
Sorry.
It's so ridiculous. But then in the second one, that one, I will say this. In the second one with Dwight. So in the second one, in the first one, it's Bill Sage and Parker Posey and then the third person that you don't see. In the second one, it's Dwight, who's also in Amateur.
Yeah, he's
He's the squatter,
along
and
with
amateur.
Parker Posey.
It's Dwight, and then whose real name is Dwight. And then it's this guy, oh God, is it Johan or something?
Yeah,
So it's
Johan
two
is
men.
Johan is the guy we
See.
Yeah. The other one is Werner.
Oh God. When they showed Werner, I was like, Dwight, girl, you can do better than both of these
I
men.
know.
Dwight is very pretty. He's very fashionable. He was such a cool character. And he's like debating over these ugly ass white men. And I was like, darling, I really wanted to, I was glad that essentially in the end, it looked like he chose neither of them.
Yeah. Well, it's
I was
ambiguous.
like, yeah, it is ambiguous, but he is given a jacket by someone else.
Yeah.
And then they're like,
who's also not very attractive.
it's true, but I would say,
or not, he could just still do better is what I mean.
well, of course, yes. I mean, just Dwight, please do better.
And I have to imagine there was a very lively gay male scene in Berlin in the 90s.
Oh my God, there had to have been. So yeah, Dwight's, I don't want to say Dwight's was the most disappointing because that's not quite what I mean because his story was, I think, the most visually interesting out of all of them. Well, maybe not the most because it was really, I think the last two were the most interesting, but he was the most visually interesting character, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And then, but the men, I mean, Johan was better looking than Werner, hands down. Werner, I was like, where are his teeth? Does he have them? I don't understand. He just had, oh man, it was not good. He was so ugly.
I mean, same to Werner's wife, you know?
Yeah, exactly. Why are you so worried? I was like, it's cool if you and his wife.
European standards are different.
It's cool if you and his wife hook up. That's fine. She's semi-attractive, so that's cool. But
and they almost do.
Yeah, that was the confusing.
Yeah, that was.
But whatever. And then the third one, it's kind of cute in a way. Hal Hartley is Hal Hartley is essentially himself in this, playing opposite his wife, who he's the one giving the ultimatum to her. And then she is giving an ultimatum. I really liked this one. I was a little bit disappointed only because I think her and the wife had so much more chemistry and were so, there was I felt like there was more romantic tension between them than the husband. I was like, I don't even understand why you're here.
Yeah.
But the wife, I was like, I loved their interactions and I loved how they were around.
She was great.
I loved the wife.
Yeah.
I can't remember what her name was.
I think the character's name is Yuki, I think.
Yeah. Loved her. Absolutely loved her.
Yeah, she was fantastic.
And the fact that she's in costume the whole time.
Yeah.
Oh, fucking loved it. I loved it. The gun, yeah, it's all really good. But I think that one ends it's a little ridiculous, but that one ends, I think, the sweetest. With he's waiting for her when she gets, because they all end with the person gets out of the, they get shot, their face is deformed, and then they try to get in touch with the person that gave them the ultimatum to begin with, and to no avail.
Right.
And so in the third one, that's how it looks like it's going to end, where she's about to try and get in touch with Hal. But it ends up to where he is at the hospital actually waiting for her. So she, that's how that one ends.
Oh, is that where it's supposed to be?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, because she walks out and he's just there.
And I'm going to say this.
But he's asleep.
He's asleep, but yeah, because she's, he's been waiting for her and, Anyway, I'm sure I'm going to say he probably did that just because, I mean, it's one, he always has women falling asleep. So he put himself in the girl's position there.
Nice.
But
It's an interesting
yeah.
observation.
Plus he's asleep in the other scene with her when she takes his watch off.
Yeah,
He's
yeah,
like
yeah.
completely asleep. So maybe his character is just a heavy sleeper.
The character's name is Yuki, I think.
Uh-huh.
And if so, then that actor's name is Chikako Hara.
Nice. So what was I gonna say? I was gonna say no, it's fine.
Ostensibly, the person is the flirt.
Yes. The main
So Bill
yeah.
in the first,
Dwight in the
Dwight
second.
and Miho in the third.
Yeah.
Which,
Miho seems the least flirtatious of any of them.
yeah. For me, it's like, he clearly made the choice to do gender and sexuality permutations.
Yes.
But to that end, I wish more had been done with that. Otherwise, it just seems like diversity higher.
I see. What
You know what I mean? Because,
Yeah.
if the whole point is to show the same premise in different human milieus, as they say, there's a whole slew of dynamics you're not even talking about
Right,
that are
right.
present.
Right, but I mean, like, you can
Or
only
would
do
be.
so much, you know.
No, I agree. I just feel like, in of course, that's a very contemporary
Yeah.
lens.
Yeah.
Like everybody's woke now. I like the original version where every single one was a heterosexual relationship and with a white cis person.
Interestingly enough, this was first a short film.
Yeah, I was going to say
Flirt.
this feels more like it doesn't. It feels more like Survivor and Desire than
Yeah. It really didn't feel. It really was weird because it didn't feel like a feature length film, even though
Agreed.
there were 3 30 to 45 minute bits in it. It didn't feel like it was a full length film, which was wild. But it was originally a short film that he made in 1983.
93.
Yeah. And he either right before or right after he did Amateur, he got funding to turn it into
Nice.
a feature.
I was going to
film.
say, I kept thinking this is a clever grift to a way to get money from 3 different countries.
Yeah. Right. Yeah, it was very I was very interested in it. Obviously, I was watching it. I think it was maybe the third one. I can't remember if it was the second or third one where I was very interested, and then I was like, yeah, I keep getting worried that I'm not going to enjoy these, but I'm like, it's a Hartley film. The one thing I will say, I was reading about it, and I guess from the Book of Life on,
Yeah.
he shoots digitally.
See, I was wondering, I know this is before
And
that.
it said his aesthetic essentially changed after
Yeah.
that. So
Okay.
when he's on film, he has a different aesthetic than when he's on digital. So that's an interesting thing, and that's something that I'm going to look forward to when we.
Yeah, that's one thing I was kind of struck by is if I did or had seen this when in the 90s, I think it would have felt too clean compared to his, my favorites from the Long Island trilogy.
To be clear, this is a film.
Right.
This is shot on film, is what I
Right.
mean. Sorry. To be clear, this is a film. Yes, I know.
To be clear, this is a talkie. Yeah, but it feels, for whatever reason, much cleaner, higher def. Maybe it's just you got a better transfer or whatever. But even if I'd seen it at a time, probably I would have.
Yeah.
It feels brighter somehow.
Yeah.
Especially the Berlin section is very white.
Yeah.
Which he loves. I mean, he always has sets like that.
Yeah.
at some point during a film, but like, usually it's an empty house.
Yeah.
That's blank white walls.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that would have turned me off, I think. But now it doesn't.
Yeah.
I appreciate it. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't know. That's all. And I wonder. But it did make me wonder about. I figured it was too early to be shot digitally, but
Yeah.
and plus, you see film canisters in the film, and the guy going through.
Right. Yeah. Right.
That character was pretty great too.
Oh yeah, for
His
sure.
assistant, his
Yeah.
Japanese assistant or whatever.
And counting money every time you see.
Yeah.
Counting and recounting the same pile of
A lot
money.
of cash he gave him. Also, I love how the presence of vending machines in the Tokyo
Yeah.
section.
There's a shot of Dwight like against sort of like a building backdrop, you know, like a whatever.
Yep.
And something struck me about it because he's like standing there and it's just him and he's sort of off to the side a little bit. And you have a lot of like structure. It's like just bare in the background. And he's like, he's lighting a cigarette, which that's another Hartley. Like everyone lighting a
smokes.
cigarette. Everyone's lighting a cigarette in every scene.
All the time, yeah.
But
That's another thing that has to have changed by the early aughts.
so the lighting changes very dramatically. And I was like, I love this because that means that
It's a cloud.
Yeah, it's a cloud overhead.
Yeah.
And that struck me so, like, I was like, oh, I fucking love that. I love that he didn't reshoot it. He didn't say, oh, fuck, let's do it again. He didn't, and he used that. I don't know. I was
Totally.
just like, love
it totally stands out because you never see that in films.
Correct. Yeah.
And, I remember reading about this last summer, when we were talking about trust.
The summer before last.
Okay. Jeez. That's like how he operates now. Like he mostly uses natural light. Like and it's sort of because of money, but like it's also like he considers it like a constraint and like a chance operations kind of thing. It's just a way that it adds an element that it's a constraint to take your preferences as a composer or a filmmaker or whatever out of your hands. So, like it's not, anyway, I don't feel articulated enough to go into, there's a long tradition of artists doing that as a way to take themselves out of the equation,
right.
Like, anyway, so I appreciate that. But yeah, like he says he mostly does. That's how he operates
so
now.
Cool. Yeah. And that's something that like, I think that's a thing that like stands out about his work is that there, as much as he does have like, strangely parsed dialogue and like unusual sentences and, and his dialogue is always a little bit unrealistic. There's always this aspect of like blending into the scenery, that makes it feel so, it gives such an interesting dynamic. I really like watching this or like this whole month. I'm like, yeah, they're like really, these films are so like, obviously I was struck by his work when I first came across it in the early aughts. And there's just something, it's just, now I was not articulate. I don't even know how to put it into words. It's just like, there's something so, I don't want to say contrarian because that's not exactly what I mean, but there's something so, like, he leans into the low budget aspect of it as opposed to trying to make it look like it's not. He allows it to look, but not in the sense of like everything's super bare, everything is super, like shoddy. It's not like that. It's like it looks like he's actually just shooting in someone's apartment is what I mean. You know, like it looks like it's someone's shitty apartment that he's filming in. It doesn't look like it's
which it probably is.
Right, exactly. And that's such an interesting thing, like, and it goes against a lot of the things I feel like in the 90s that were happening where there was a lot of bright colors and a lot of like, like if you watch Friends, it's like there's 3 people that are like barely functioning, or 3 people. There's 6 people that are like, because you have Monica and Rachel who live together. And you have Joey and Chandler that live together. And like they're barely scraping by. And they have these huge New York apartments. Right. And it's like a lot of that sort of like.
Well, to be fair, even though they're across the hall from one another, Monica and Rachel's apartment is much bigger than Joey and Chandler's. It's got that veranda and everything.
It's true. And I will say Chandler and Monica.
And they spend more time in that apartment than any other.
It's true. Well, but I want to say like there was a lot of, and I mean, I realize it's a sitcom.
Let's get into it.
It's not, but there was a lot of like just unrealistic sort of like things being thrown out there. So like,
I remember them talking about this when Broad City first was around and blown up, and they were like, yeah, we would shoot. I mean, we try to make the sets look like our living spaces as much as possible, but literally, if we were to shoot in our apartments, there would not be enough space for the actors and the camera person.
Right.
Yeah. So it's unrealistic in that regard.
Right, yeah.
Sorry.
No, I get what you're like. That's, but I think it's like in Surviving Desire, something that was interesting was, Martin Donovan's character was, a professor. It seems like he's always sort of like not they sort of portray him as being sort of poor, He's like wearing the same sort of clothes all the time, and he's
got a dumpy apartment.
Yeah, he's got an apartment with like a bed, a chair, a fridge. He's got a shitty toaster,
Right.
And he's always going to bookstores and not buying anything and just like looking at stuff, or a bookstore. And I just want to say that it's a nice sort of chain. Sorry, we got to talking about things, I guess, that were too emotional for Keith, and he had to have the hot snakes. It's raining outside.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Apparently, Sven stock has been officially
I know,
canceled.
poor Sven. We're so sorry.
That sucks because that was a lot of planning.
I know. We talked about it yesterday. We were like, oh, man, Sven might have to cancel. And Keith was hopeful. He's like, no, it's going to rain in the morning. It'll be okay. And
I was rooting for it.
I know. Clearly.
Even though I'm not attending or performing or any of that.
Yeah. What a tragedy. That sounded so fucking sarcastic.
It did.
I did. God damn it. I don't know how not to sound sarcastic when I mean something sincerely, and when I'm sarcastic, autism. What are you gonna do? Yeah. What were we? What's going on? What are we talking?
Where are we? What are we doing?
Oh, good. We're only 10 minutes in. No. So I wanna do something.
Yeah, you had something you were saying.
Yeah, I don't remember.
When my
your poop changed.
Bowels interrupted you.
Your poop changed directions for us. It's fine. I was just talking about like looking like realism in the sense of like how he uses realism in sets and not in dialogue. And how it like he's not really afraid to show a character that's living realistically, which didn't always happen in the 90s,
Right, yes.
is what I meant.
Yeah, and one thing in general that I really appreciate, I mean, it's less so in this one in a certain way, but like definitely in the Long Island trilogy, like, it's always kind of a working class setting.
Yeah. Yeah.
And by which I mean, like, you see the characters that their jobs are, mechanic or construction worker or whatever.
Yeah.
I mean, that starts to change around them, when we get to like Surviving Desire as a professor, and in this film you have, I mean, it is and it isn't. You get more. You don't really know what like
Anyone's doing.
Yeah, I mean,
Other than
the flirts in question seem to not have to worry about a living.
Yeah.
We don't know.
Yeah.
Except for Miho is a student, presumably.
Yeah.
Of the dance.
Yeah.
Is what they say.
I want to read a couple quotes from Hal. I think there is such a thing as an independent audience, and this is more important even than independent filmmakers. And another one, which I like, and I'm probably going to say this a lot, the budget is the aesthetic.
Nice. Fuck yeah.
Right? This is also a great one. I hum tunes to myself while I walk. This is why I don't have a driver's license. Walking is a big part of my creative work. And I once got into a car accident because I was thinking about music.
Oh, shit.
Hashtag relatable.
Damn.
Also, this is an interesting thing that he said specifically about Flirt. Flirt is some of the best work I've ever done. It sort of ruined my career.
Nice.
See, this is why I enjoy him. Also, he comes from like working class. His dad was like an iron worker.
Oh, okay.
And he worked with his father and brothers, I think, with like that kind of thing while he like to pay for his college, basically.
Oh, right on.
So like he, it's one of those things that's like very interesting that he doesn't have like a fear of portraying men as both doing things like mechanic work, like difficult work, but also showing them as being like
emotionally vulnerable.
Right. Yeah. It's not a dichotomy of like one or the other. He writes these complex characters. And
I think there's an argument that can be made for the type of male character he writes could be considered a certain kind of romanticization of whatever that is, but like it's not one we're more familiar with seeing.
Correct.
Romanticized of the gruff working man.
Yeah.
That somehow this is a very, I think, uniquely United States thing of like the working class person is presumed conservative.
Yeah. Right.
And ignorant.
Yeah.
Or sort of like, if they're white.
For sure. Yeah.
Anyway.
I just want to read this because I like it. So we talked about this a little bit in The Simple Men.
Okay.
I think we referenced it a little bit in The Simple Men when we talked with Floda. The article or the essay that Bell Hooks wrote about basically Hartley films and what they mean. I'm just going to read pieces of it. I'm not going to read the whole thing.
Yeah.
In the unbelievable truth, trust, and simple men, ordinary landscapes convey tedium and the sense of meaninglessness and hopelessness that depresses everyone now and then. Against these landscapes, small dramas of betrayal and abandonment are enacted in simple... Sorry. Against these landscapes, small dramas of betrayal and abandonment are enacted. In simple men, two sons search for their father and to understand the truth of who he is and the legacy he is leaving them. They never find anything but fragments, yet as they search, we see their vulnerability exposed. We see behind the mask of masculinity, which I think is a really good way to put. Shockingly, Bell Hooks put it so well. It's a really good way to talk about how he portrays men as masculine and vulnerable. You know, like there's not a lot of times the men, you know, like in Simple Men, Robert John Burke as like a criminal, you know, he's wanted by the law, all this shit, but he's like heartbroken and, you know, smitten with a woman, you know,
right.
all of these things that are, you know, he writes men who are romantics, but not who are, I guess, who don't see women, who see women as whole people. You know, usually when
right.
someone is a romantic, what they're looking for is the thrill of the chase. They're not looking for an actual person.
Yeah, that's right. Or it's an idealized.
Right. And he has people fall for the reality of the person as opposed to the idea of them. And that's something that I think you don't really see in man-made, like man, not like human, but like man-made films, written, directed by men, starring men, and
You mean mask made?
cis male, I guess, made films that are heterosexual and,
Right.
you know, you see like women as objects, you see women as there to further the men's story, the
Right.
story of the men, but you don't see women being able to further them, like, you know, like even in Simple Men when she like, you know, they have this moment where she says something and he like kisses her and then she slaps him
Right.
and she's like pissed.
Yeah.
And then she's like, I didn't slap you. I forget exactly what she says. You know, I'm sure they'll be
I
like,
did nothing to give you the idea that
Right.
you could do that.
yeah.
Something like that.
But she says afterwards, she's like, I didn't slap you
Because I didn't like it or
right.
something?
I didn't slap you because you kissed me. I slapped you or something like that. She was like, I slapped you because I didn't want you to think I wanted you to or something like that. Like the way that she says is like, I wasn't, like, it wasn't that I didn't want to kiss you. It's that like, I didn't want you to think that you had the right to do
Right,
it.
right.
And like that sort of thing is so like, she says that and also is not villainized for saying that.
Right.
It's not a joke. It's a serious moment in the movie.
Yeah.
It's not a dialogue. It's not a
Right.
piece of dialogue that you laugh at. You know, it's a serious moment. And the fact that he can give a line like that to a woman and not have you side with her or have you understand and be like, oh, I see, that makes sense. You know, it's so
Yeah.
interesting. And like, I think in that way, there's a lot about his films, especially films from, you know, also like, you know, in The Unbelievable Truth, you know, I mean, I've talked about this throughout all of these episodes, but like the fact that, you know, Adrienne Shelley is playing a model and she, and you know, like her like final pose or whatever, or her final thing is that she's naked.
Right.
And the father's like really upset about it.
Right.
But she is a person, she is a character, is never villainized for this.
Right.
She's never, like, it's never seen as something that she should be ashamed of. It's a joke that her parents or that her dad is upset about it. That's what's funny, is that he's so upset that this happened.
Right. And I think that's a similar thing that he's trying to do in Amateur with how pornography is
Yeah.
talked about
Yeah.
or functions
Yeah.
in that movie.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, I mean, although it's stated that Lewinsson's character is forced into making those
Right.
films.
Right.
The consumption of it is
Right.
not
Right.
like Martin Donovan is his character Tim? No.
Thomas?
Thomas, yes. Another saint name.
Oh.
Doubting Thomas, right? I don't remember. I don't know my saints. I'm not.
Well, Doubting Thomas was an apostle, I think. That's what they called Doubting Thomas. He's the one that
okay.
had to stick his fingers in the holes.
To do what?
In Jesus's holes.
Oh, okay.
He was like, yeah. And Jesus was like, put her there. And he went, and he was like, ew, girl, that's nasty.
Okay.
And he wiped his finger off on his like tunic or whatever. And Jesus was like, girl, you have to wash that blood off in the lake. And so
you washed in the blood?
Yeah. And he was like, JK. And then he turned it into water and he pissed himself.
Man.
I've read
I'm not
the
good
Bible.
on the New Testament.
I've read the Bible. I've read the
That is
Bible for
definitely
filth.
This is definitely going to be the teaser. Read the Bible for filth. Speaking of pornography.
Jesus led his disciples and they served cunt.
He served the multitudes with fish.
I don't think that was a disciple story, but sure. Maybe it was.
Maybe I was using non-gendered pronouns, non-binary pronoun for Jesus. You ever think about that?
You're right. Oh my God. Jesus is non-binary. A non-binary queen.
Yep. Slay.
Jesus said, work.
You know that? I don't know. This is one of those of spiritualist origins. It's one of those things that is very believably something a Christian would do, thinking it was very serious, but is actually very funny. It's like, I asked Jesus how much he loved me, and he said this much.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. No, that's 100% serious. That's 100% serious. I was like all over the place. And he said this much, and then he died.
Yeah. That's so fucking
He said, I
ridiculous.
love you so much that I'm going to fucking kill myself
Yep.
in front of you because I'm so sick of your
Death
shit.
by cop. Death by paunch.
This is why Christians have such abusive relationships. They're like, I love you. I'm going to kill myself. And you're like, what?
I don't know else.
Jesus did it first.
Yeah.
I learned it by watching Jesus.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh my God. This is some
In those
shit.
days, that was a healthy relationship.
In those days. In the Bible days.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
Because everyone wanted to fucking die because it was horrible.
Because it was gross.
There was like leprosy was like,
Apparently a real problem.
yeah.
In the Fertile Crescent, at least. What?
This is funny. I like being blasphemous. It makes me feel really kinky. Yeah. Yeah.
The question remains, what to do when a contingent reality demands definitive action.
What's that from?
Flirt.
Oh, okay.
The little you get. I read the the construction workers, the builders in the Berlin section.
The one that you laughed as soon as he spoke.
Yeah, that guy's voice is great.
He's in The Princess and the Warrior.
What's that?
It's a movie that stars the girl Run Lola Run. I think it's called The Princess and the Warrior. It's a very interesting, weird.
German film.
Yeah. It's from 2000. So,
okay.
Yeah, The Princess and the Warrior. And it's about like a nurse.
Oh.
Franca Potente, of course.
Of course.
Well, young nurse Sissy lives a secluded life seemingly entirely devoted to her patients at Birkenhof Asylum. Her first encounter with ex-soldier and drifter Bodo has a lasting impact. He causes an accident that results in her lying under a truck, unable to breathe. Yeah, it's like this really interesting thing where he has these dissociative moments where he loses, I don't know, like time or something. I don't know. He just I can't remember if he is like has fits of violence or I can't remember, but it's just like it's like essentially like I'm assuming PTSD kind of thing. She gets hit by a car and she can't breathe, and so he just like scoots under the car and like tracheotomies her, like gives her like a little tracheotomy, and he's like, because like she has to breathe, like he's just like sucking blood out and spitting it, and like yeah. Anyway, you can see why I like the movie. I'd be interested to rewatch it, but the guy from that movie played one of the people in the asylum.
Okay. He's not the main. He's not Bodo.
No, he's not Bodo. Bodo's kind of hot. But yeah. Anyway, so I was like, oh, that's that guy from that movie I watched 20 years ago.
Nice.
Because that's my brain. That's all.
Yeah, I was very curious about. I mean, it's probably just my racism that I didn't feel this way about the Tokyo set, but like Tokyo cast. But like, I was like, oh, I wonder what these other crazy Germans are in.
Yeah. Everyone in the Berlin one was like, not everyone, but all the men in the Berlin one were woof. Except for Dwight, of course, but he wasn't a Berliner, so he wasn't a donut.
A jelly donut.
A jelly donut. Would you recommend Flirt?
Yeah, I didn't. I liked it more than I expected to. I'd say, and I'm glad we ended here because it feels like it's probably. I mean, like. Very much, especially since the first one is the New York one with the cast,
Yeah, right.
And it feels very familiar. It feels very much like the transition to
his later work.
Where his work goes after this. I mean, we're still going to watch Book of Life.
Right.
We'll see where that fits. Because that's got Martin Donovan, so.
Yeah, so.
But, yeah. So I like that. I was worried about ending on it because I thought it was going to be kind of a down.
Yeah, same.
Or, anyway. I'm glad we went chronologically because it really, you can see a progression.
Yes, yeah. It
Especially,
really did
and like
something.
Simple Men, like, I think that's why it's awkward is it starts to move. Like, one thing about this one is it feels, this is why I mean, we just watched Surviving Desire the other night, the night before. So, of course, that's going to be the most easily comparable. You know, like
Yeah.
my brain's just going to do that. But I think it's they're pushing towards feeling more didactic. Which, you know, again, like one of the things that feels so magical about Trust and Unbelievable Truth, is, in particular, are that these philosophical concepts are brought up, sometimes embodied in a character, but it doesn't make the character less human feeling, which is always the threat.
Yeah.
When you embody an idea or an ideal, you risk objectification
Yeah.
of a person.
Right.
And I think that's more adroitly done, more nuanced. It's more embedded in the fabric, you know, like in the, I don't know how to describe it, in the filament. And that's what's fun about those. And then, you know, like in this period that for me starts with Simple Men, definitely is true in Surviving Desire and somewhat in this one, where it's just someone literally reading quotes from a book.
Yeah.
You know, and it's like, okay, you know, like, and that's all that character does.
Yeah.
You know, like, that's basically all the character of Henry does in Surviving Desire.
Yeah.
You know, like, he's just there to quote things. And, you know, with the every setting in Flirt has a structural moment where it's like the Flirt character is asking for advice from strangers.
Yeah.
In the Berlin section, that keeps going where you see the in question, and they function kind of like a Greek course, you know. In the Berlin section, that takes up more space. And those three guys, in that case, three builders, we see outside of the context.
Yeah.
And they break the fourth wall, basically, by saying, referring to the filmmaker.
Yeah.
That's all. I'm just naming it. And and they say, do you think he will succeed? You know.
I like when they're like, he's already failed.
Yeah. And that guy gets mad. He's like, he's already failed, but in this case, the failure is interesting.
Yeah.
And the guy's like, shut the fuck up. And he's like, and that's when he's like, the question remains.
Yeah.
So, you know, like, I think that's where this one is kind of borderline for me. Like,
You mean Flirt?
yeah.
Yeah.
In that it's pushing towards the feel of a very sort of an upper class or a particular flavor of like experimental art that we are familiar with in the U.S. and associate with people who are not connected to any like working class reality.
Right. Yeah.
Your favorite, Maria Abramovich.
Ugh, yeah. Love her. Ugh.
You know, I love Laurie Anderson's early work, but the fact that she's, you know, before the pandemic, she was touring with a concert for dogs. That kind of shit.
Right.
Feels divorced from like,
right. Yeah.
Oh, it's just pure what if, which is fine in concept, except that when you put it into the reality,
right. When you put it into the
to
reality,
the material context in which it was coming from, it's like, okay, well, also
there gets a point where you divorce yourself from reality, but to the point that you are saying it's more interesting to think of what ifs than it is to address any of the things, any of the wrongs that I feel are out of my control.
Right.
So you then lose any sort of like like your philosophical questions no longer have any relevance because you have refused to
Your
address
problems
the
are trivial.
reality of what life is, you know. And so you're like, I'm fine, so I want to ask questions that I don't have the answers to, and I never will. So I have to therefore ask, what does it feel like to be a cat and take a piss, you know? And it's like, this isn't.
Exactly.
No one gives a shit, you know.
Right.
Been with Johan for 6 months and I haven't strayed once.
So what do you want me to do? Give you a medal?
Are you upset?
Your problems are trivial.
I mean, I think because we watched Surviving Desire the night before we watched Flirt.
Yes.
And I think it was an interesting concept because it felt like there was, so Surviving Desire was made right after Trust was.
Okay. Yeah.
And it came out around the same time as Simple Men, but it was made, I think it was like made right after. I don't know, because it says it came out in 1992, so I don't know if it was just like took that long to like, I don't know, whatever. Also, I don't know what right after means, you know.
Yeah.
Immediately after Trust, it was made. I read his Wikipedia
Gotcha.
before we. So I brain farted. So Flirt and Surviving Desire are they're like asking. It seems like they're asking similar questions,
Right.
but with a different outcome. Mm-hmm. Like one of them is like, because I felt like in Surviving Desire they were saying like you can't have, like they were saying like there was like lots of like love and faith back and forth, and they do the same thing in Flirt, but I feel like the outcome was different. Like they were saying like one, I think in Surviving Desire they were saying like faith is love or something like that, or love is just faith, and but with I don't know, the way that they were saying it, it seemed like it was a little bit like the opposite of what the outcome or whatever was. The outcome was in Flirt. Like they were saying, I liked what they said in Flirt. Like I think it was Robert John Burke. He said like faith and love are the same thing, but like love is the reality of faith or something like that. I don't know. It was a really interesting thing.
Love requires no proof. Seen in this light, love is a sort of faith. Since a faith that requires proof wouldn't be a faith at all. But I will make this distinction. Love is an act, faith is an ability.
He says, well,
He said it well while reading about what's her name?
Yeah, who?
Fuck, I don't remember.
Like new Amy tapes.
Yeah, I think it's like a specific. I'll have to. Oh God, hang on. She was like a. Oh shit! Hold on. In 1992, at the age of 17, Amy Fisher shot and severely wounded Mary Jo Buttafuoco, the wife of Joey Buttafuoco.
Yes, okay.
With whom Fisher was in a sexual relationship. Yeah.
Sometimes I think this is a nightmare and it didn't happen, and then I realize that it did.
It was the first time Amy Fisher had seen Mary Jo Buttafuoco since May 19, 1992, the day she sauntered up to the Long Island housewife's home and put a bullet in her head.
And there was like sex tapes or something. I don't know. There was like shit.
Wasn't she a minor too?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, you
at the
said
age of 17.
17. Sorry.
So yeah. I think
the edge is 17.
If she was 17, I think 17 is like legal in New York. So.
Depending on which season of SVU.
No, I'm pretty sure that was a thing I knew in the 90s. I don't know why, but it was talked about.
I wonder.
Anyway, I wonder, you're such a bitch. I don't know how to take that. I don't know if you're I don't know if you're being a shitty asshole to me or you're just saying something.
No, I wasn't.
Oh, thank you.
Where can I get laid legally by an older man?
No. Yes, I was Googling this without a computer. At
You were
12.
Googling this in 1996.
I was 17 in 2002, so.
I'm planning ahead. 5-year plan.
Fuck off.
Where do you see yourself in 5 years? Getting railed by a professor In New York City.
New York City.
Get a Pope.
Yeah, I would recommend as well. I think this is a great example of like, I think if you're a fan of filmmaking,
Gross. Get the fuck out of here.
fuck off. No, I mean like,
Not you. I mean, if you're a fan of filmmaking.
what I mean. If you like,
What are you doing here?
fuck off. Anyway, I would definitely recommend it for. Yeah, I think if you have an appreciation for film, you'll definitely like it. I think it's something that it's definitely something that you could be like, yeah, I don't really like this one. I can see how Flota said this wasn't as fair. I understand that. But I think I think the execution is a lot better done than anyone else would have done it.
Yeah, you can easily see how it'd be far less entertaining in other hands.
Yeah.
I mean, it's already I think that's one of the constraints that he gave himself and why it's an experiment.
Yeah.
That you don't know what the outcome will be until you try it. But the repeated dialogue is a bit of an obstacle.
Right.
I mean,
yeah.
Especially, given that it's Hartley, one of the most exciting things about him is the dialogue for me.
Right. Correct. Yeah.
So the fact that it just repeats is, not.
I see. Yeah, I can understand that.
And, the fact that it's repeated, it starts to lose meaning for me.
Yeah.
And I think that's a natural.
Thank you.
I mean, I feel like he does keep it interesting, especially.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
Like, the Tokyo section is the most divergent, it feels like.
Yeah, I agree.
Like, it doesn't even, I think the sequence is even different.
The sequence is different, but also the dialogue that happens about Miho being a flirt and staying faithful, that doesn't happen. She's not in that conversation at all.
What about me?
What about you?
Miho's been with me for 6 months. Hasn't strayed once.
So what?
It's Hartley and his assistant that are having that
Right.
conversation. So that's a different way that conversation is had.
Right.
So it's like
some of the
right.
Yeah, it's moved around.
Yeah.
In different characters.
Yeah.
Or yeah.
And also the kiss happens. We see the kiss happen, and in the other scenarios, it's always referenced. Yeah, he kisses her.
Oh.
He she has the hat. He kisses her and.
And then he comments on the hat.
Or some no, I think whatever. It doesn't matter. I'm just saying that's the scene that it happens in. I don't know the sequence. But in every other story we hear it referenced, but his character is not seen. Well, in the second one it's seen, but in the first one his character, the husband or wife, the spouse, isn't seen. The second one they're seen. And oh wait, no, yeah, we don't ever. Yeah, in the second
first one we
whatever.
don't see the wife.
Yes,
We see
In the
Martin
second-
Donovan.
Yes,
In the second one we see
the ugly Werner or whatever. But he's not really even a character. And in the third, I mean, I wouldn't say he's a character in the third one, but he has dialogue, or maybe he doesn't have dialogue. But
if he does very little.
Yeah, but we see him in multiple scenes.
Mm-hmm.
So. Which one do you think is your favorite? Because this is the last episode
for the month.
Yeah, I'm not including Book of Life or Desire, Surviving Desire.
I had the most fun with Unbelievable Truth.
Really? Yeah.
Yeah.
I thought Simple Men was going to be my favorite because I really loved Unbelievable Truth, but when we watched Simple Men, I was like, wow, how did I this is so good. And I was expecting to not enjoy Amateur as much. I was expecting the later we went, the less I was going to like them. And Amateur turned out to be, I think, my favorite. I was very surprised by it.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it really hit me, and there was so much.
That's right.
There was so much about it that was just so. The music, there was just so much about it that was really compelling and it was, yeah. Okay. So I'm going to read this other section of the Bell Hooks article. It's so hard to read because the fucking, like, no offense, but
Are you reading it off his website?
Yeah. It's like, good God. Like,
Font choice?
the font choice, but like reading it on a phone, which is like the tiniest lettering ever, combined with, like the like it's like very thin lettering on white, so it just looks like gray on white. I'm like, oh yeah. So okay, I blew it up, so I'm gonna read it now. Okay,
Blow it up.
Amateur takes it. This is continued. This is like immediately continued after where I stopped before.
Oh, nice.
Amateur takes it further, exploring issues of forgiveness and reconciliation. Resurrected from symbolic death as the film begins, actor Martin Donovan rises as a man with no memory. He leaves behind one woman exploited, oppressed, and terrorized, then finds another whom he offers care and solace. Without memory, he hopes to be given a second chance. The women struggle with whether to trust him. In the end, it does not matter. All is not redeemed. Betrayal, Hartley's films remind us, makes everyone long for redemptive love, a way to start over. Life, his work tells us, offers us all just this, a constant opportunity for a change of heart. And I think that was really, that's a really great, whatever. Yeah. That's a really great whatever. But yeah, that's really what it felt like. It was like, there was just something about I think that was it's probably one of the darker stories. Mm-hmm. It's definitely the darkest one that we watched, in this month. And thematically, I think it's darker than anything else Hartley has made. One, it ends in tragedy, quote unquote, and his films don't usually end in that. They won't necessarily end in an uplifting, thing, but they also don't usually end in a character dying.
Right. That was actually pretty shocking.
Yeah, it was. But it was, there was something about it that was very, very compelling and beautiful, and really it just struck me in a way that I did not expect any of these films to do. I thought I was just going to enjoy them and have a great time, and it ended up like really like it's on par with Trust for me, and
damn,
because of just how deep it felt it went. I do want to say before we close up shop or anything, in the lobby I was like, how Hartley doesn't have any nudity in his movies, and there's like full frontal in Flirt. There's like complete full frontal shot like for an extended period of time. I was like, well, okay. I mean, like, it's fine. I don't care. Like, I'm not somebody that's bothered by nudity, but it was I had no idea that it was just, sorry.
I'm a little disappointed there were no willies.
That's fair.
Especially given it's him,
Yeah.
I would expect equal time.
Same. Yeah.
There's a nice ass shot when she's concentrating on one thing.
Oh, yeah.
She just pulls the cover back.
Yeah, and like...
It's like, literally, it just implies she's literally remembering that guy's ass.
Yeah. Smiling. I was like, that's relatable. Pulls the covers down. Looks at his butt. Yeah. Yeah, this was this is probably next to our Halloween months. This is probably going to be my favorite month that we've ever done, because there was something really, I don't know what it was, but these movies really kicked me right in the vagina. They really got me. So I had a good time. Hartley,
I'm glad that there's always some concern that, one of the reasons we focus on the time period we do and the films we do is one of the reasons.
Yeah.
Is to see how they've aged for us.
Yeah.
As we've aged.
Correct.
So let's see how our personal relationship to it. It's a conversation.
Yeah.
Hey, it's chill. We're just rapping here. So I'm very excited to see that they still feel as fresh.
Yeah, and they still feel so relevant, which is like almost. It's almost like embarrassing that like.
Right.
It's
you're
a
sad statement on film history in
correct.
a way.
Yeah. But it's also like it's one of those things where I think, it probably would have if I watched Simple Men 20 years ago, it would mean something different than watching it now for the first time, like
For sure.
But it's something where like if a film can last 20, 30 years and still have something to say. And like even stuff that he talks about when they're having the conversation about like, sexuality and like who's exploited, like is there any, like are women always exploited? Is there any ever a time when women aren't being exploited by this? There's not really an answer to that. They don't really answer it, but these are questions that like people still don't have answers to, and people still are like going back and forth on. So like the fact that
well, and I remember, I mean, of course, this is just my personal lens, but like in Simple Men, the conversation about Madonna, very relevant. Like, that was a real question that people seem to be asking.
Right.
And it was not only women, what?
Nothing. I'll tell you.
But I know there was discourse around hip hop in that way. Like,
right. Yeah.
What are the ethics of that? What are the dynamics of that? I mean, spoiler, it's all under capitalism.
Right,
so
yeah. Right.
That's the answer. But as far as I'm concerned.
I was laughing because I remembered that they were talking about, like, they're talking about Madonna and shit. And then at the end of the conversation, it ends with Martin Donovan just listing all the bands he listens to. Because he wasn't understanding what the conversation. He was like, I thought we were just talking about.
But he's like, it's right after the dance scene.
Yeah.
Which features a Sonic Youth song, which is about white male corporate oppression. In so many words. And then, like, I think the very next scene is him saying, like, I don't go out much for modern music or whatever. And then the conversation about Madonna happens.
That fucking killed me.
Yeah. And that's something me and Brian say to each other all the time, is this hot fucking tuna.
Hot dolphin.
Yeah. Hot dolphin. Oh, shit. Yeah, for me, it's also, I get less interested. It's one of the reasons Surviving Desire is not necessarily one of my favorites.
Pussy.
And Flirt, because when we start talking about love, things like love and faith in the abstract and act as though they're real things, external to, I don't know. I really start to check out because I don't think that helps.
Yeah.
I think talking about those things in that way is...
You heard it here first, folks. Keith doesn't like talking about love and faith.
Not in those terms.
I know. Yeah. I like that sort of conversation. I think it's interesting. Because I think it's because I grew up around talking about those things differently than a sort of philosophical way. And so like talking about them that way feels like it gives them more context outside of my familiarity with them.
Interesting.
So I appreciate it. Like faith, when you grow up in, Christianity is like something you're supposed to have.
Yeah, just default.
Yeah.
A priori.
Right. And so there's not a lot of discussion about it. So when people start to discuss it, when people start to break it down, what does it mean? What is it? I feel like I feel like it separates me further from that sort of like
get that.
indoctrination. So I enjoy it. But that's like a very personal, specific sort of thing. So
Yeah.
I understand not liking it or not having that sort of connection to it.
Well, I would be much more interested if we're talking. I mean, like, no, never mind. I don't have to say that. That's not actually true. What? I don't know.
You heard it here first, folks. Keith doesn't know.
I do know this.
We are in bed at night. I can see what you want. You want me as you do. I get chic, then I see. I know how you feel. No one else makes me smile. I give you myself forever and ever. We are our baby love child. I take you so high, groovy love child. Give me a kiss, baby love child. Do it again.
Attention adults. 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 Attention adults.
New York City.